this thing there.
Smell, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Give us a smell question.
Hey Bob, someone wants to know how can we speed up our learning?
Is that the Broken Souls scene that don't want to be known to ask this question?
No.
Okay, good. What?
Security guard.
Oh, okay, what was the question?
He wants to know how do we speed up our learning?
How do we speed up our learning? Is that another visually biased question?
Slow the breathing.
No, he'll take that.
Okay, how do we speed up our learning?
By feeling. He's holding his heart. Yeah, so emotions.
By feeling?
Yeah, emotions. Is that what you said? Yeah.
You're directing that to him? Is that what you said? That was cute.
Emotions can speed up the...
Emotions speed up the learning.
Yes.
Aren't people quite emotional?
The process. Yeah, the speed of the process.
The speed of the process will be sped up through emotions.
Synapses. You can make faster connections with emotions.
Aren't people emotional already?
No. No. They're repressing.
Squashing.
Good night, Agnes. Sorry.
He's absolutely right.
Okay. Maybe not enough.
Okay, I just want to say this. Hold your question. Did McLuhan understand that we could speed up our learning?
He gave that.
No, there's no he. What do you mean he gave that?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, McLuhan's not there. What did McLuhan know that? What Mac is pointing out?
He's saying back then, no. He's shaking his head. He's pointing backwards, so and saying...
He's saying when he was alive. He didn't know that.
Not in the...
Not when he was alive.
No, not in the wider aspect.
Did Northrop Frye know it?
No, he's definitely shaking his head.
Okay. And Norman Mailer know it?
He's not even going to answer that.
What? What?
He won't even answer that.
Won't even answer that. Anybody got anybody they favor? The Dalai Lama know that? Or did it? Or whatever the question was? The Dalai Lama know this?
He suspects so.
How does he know?
Judy, you want to go?
Yeah, well, before emotion came up, I was sitting here waiting to ask a question about emotion. And the answer came before I had a chance to ask the question.
We got a bingo here. Sheldon says they knew his question.
The effect precedes the cause.
The effect precedes the cause.
What was the question?
Judy. Yeah, what was the question?
The question was, what about emotion?
What about emotion?
Yeah.
All right. So you hear that, Chloe?
Yes.
Someone is satisfied with the answer. Judy?
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah. Before, he was saying, what's the question that we should be asking? And he said, what are you sitting on? And I was thinking, what are we sitting on emotionally that we're holding down? And if we freed that out, it would speed up our learning. So maybe that's...
Right. Someone in the audience said that we're sitting on our emotions, suppressing it. If we get off the chairs, which is Wayne's expertise, we would speed up our learning. Is that a good indication of what they're talking about?
Bob? Does Louise Hay know it?
Oh, but they're dealing with this one.
Yeah. Well, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, we're asking, is that the right interpretation, that we're sitting on our emotions? If we got off the chair, we'd speed up our learning.
Bigger. He's expressing just bigger. No, it's wider than that. It means more than that.
Mm-hmm. He said a big what?
It means
He's
more.
expressing bigger, wider. It means more.
More than that.
Yes.
So what about emotion?
Does Louise Hay know?
What?
It includes all of us. He's like wiggling all his fingers as if they represent people, like all of us.
Well, we know we're one resonating node, and we keep ignoring that. And they seem to always talk about this, imploded state we're in, which McLuhan talked about. Is that what they keep trying to point out to us?
Yes, he's getting, yes.
Yeah, okay. So we all become one little resonating node. Okay, so how do we translate that? What do we translate it? Not into the old media, but into some new thing?
Pervasive proximity.
What about sound?
pervasive proximity is what we are?
Is there Bob both ways, backwards and forwards?
Is there Bob?
Yeah, Bob both ways.
Bob as the
I need
Bob the
to-
palindrome.
Yes,
I
yes.
just want to point out something we initially started with, is that I thought we already established in the 60s, though, that everything was already available. We were already post-historic.
Yeah, we established in the 60s everything was all available.
Hence, one of our local musicians, Nathan Moore, it's never been a better time to arrive. And we're really just, it's nothing. There is nothing. We just have to take the energy and make it into something. And so we're ahead by a century, all of us, not just one or celebrity or few specific beings. We are all ahead by a century. And
Let's hold that. We're all ahead by a century. We've already arrived. As he said, McLuhan said, any possible future is already here. They're telling us that, right? Any future. So what are we supposed to translate or do? Start crying or something?
You're looking for direction.
What?
Are you looking for, sorry, can you repeat that question?
What? We're in this, great equality, resonating perfection. What is? Are they having as hard a time as we are in triggering the breakthrough? Which through other sessions they have said that.
Yes.
Now, how do they know all this stuff, or are they themselves channeling something else?
Right. How do they know all the?
Print.
What?
Sorry. They're working on the small print, like the details.
Say that again.
They're working on the details of breaking through that wall.
They are?
Yes.
And are we?
We are.
We are too?
Yeah.
it's happening right now.
And then that guy's question was,
How come they're privy to all this kind of information?
how come they're privy to all this kind of information?
Or are they themselves channeling something
Or are they channeling something else? Or are they even privy? Is this really a lot of information? Maybe that's not the case here. They're not privy to a lot of information, are they?
Sometimes.
Are we privy to a lot of information?
No, just not
Yeah,
information.
not compared to them, no.
Oh, okay, so you're right. So you want to know,
Well, they're being, like there are these sages that know all this stuff, but do they actually know all this stuff? Or is it just them being able to translate some sort of language?
just their condition.
Yeah, their state of being or consciousness.
Do they know how to trigger us? Are they not allowed to? Or they really can't and we have to get the joke or get the idea? It's like a game. We have to figure it out.
Yes,
They're playing
absolutely.
charades.
They're playing
Roulette.
Yeah, it's showing me that, if he was speaking, if he was saying it, like, I wouldn't hear it.
If he was speaking it, you wouldn't hear it.
No. Yeah,
So you can't get what we're trying to get from them.
No, it's more than that. We wouldn't hear it. If they told us, we wouldn't hear it.
Oh, because it's beyond our sensory mechanism?
No, mentally.
Not ready yet.
Still mentally.
Well, do we have to change to get into a position to hear it, or that's not relevant? We have to do something separate here.
No, he's just giving us the things to hear it. But we have to... He's impressing the feeling of understanding as well. So it's almost like we can't... Sometimes you can't hear... you can hear things, but you don't understand them. And he's giving us the kind of... he's giving me blocks here. The bricks to build it, to understand it. And only in making it can we understand it.
So he's saying there's a ladder. We have to do something. We're not doing something.
So we have to piece it together to understand it.
Are we doing that?
Yeah.
No, we are, but is the human race doing it?
No.
Oh, well, how do we get them involved?
Frank's got a gun.
What did you say? Phone them?
Frank's got a gun.
What did you say, Claude?
Frank's got a gun.
He's got a gun. He's done that before, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He thinks we start shooting.
Yeah.
He means he's a terrorist. He wants to go to war. Wake them up or just start shooting around them.
Yeah, he'd go in the aggressive stance, whereas, I'm getting James coming in now saying, no, you should be peaceful. It has to be, in a peaceful way.
So they don't agree.
No,
so those three of them represent three kinds of styles of solution.
Different bias.
Yeah.
They have biases. What would we say what would James say Frank's bias is, and what would Frank say James's bias is? Because only the other person can point. So what does Frank think James's bias is, since he wants to go peaceful? Why does Frank not do that?
It just showed me, it's like jumping off like Frank jumping off a cliff, and he's not even looking where he's going, just jumping off.
So
and James
go down there, let's jump off. Doesn't really think about whether it's safe to do that or not.
Right, and he's saying James won't do that. James is a coward, he's cautious. So Frank thinks he wants to probe by being violent and see what happens.
Yeah, more aggressive. Well, not so much violence, it's aggression.
But what is McLuhan's problem from James's point of view? I say McLuhan. I mean Mac.
Oh, so much.
Oh, Mac here. Okay.
Yeah, really.
You don't want to. All right. Okay.
But it's got to make it look good. Right? Like you tried.
He's popping balloons.
Who, James?
Yeah.
He's saying that Mac doesn't pop balloons, and James does.
No, he does. He's saying he does pop balloons.
And James doesn't agree with that.
No, because you end up with lots of, you can't reuse the balloons. You can't do anything else with them once they're burst. Once the balloon's had its life, that's it.
So what does Mac say is the problem with James? Why he does balloons and James won't, so therefore Mac says that James does something else that doesn't align with the balloon action.
Okay, so he's throwing dead Dobbs. Mac's throwing dead Dobbs to express James's bias.
That's his piece. Yeah. So that's pretty good, right? You got James's hang-up is he's into doveness. Frank's hang-up is into guns and just jumping in and being aggressive. And McLuhan wants to pop. Sorry. Mac just wants to pop balloons. So you got three ways of trying to communicate to us or teach us how to wake up. Or figure out the puzzles. Those are three approaches they got.
That's right, there's also their own individual biases, isn't it?
That's their individual bias. Are they interacting with their biases, showing us how we should interact with each other's bias? I mean, they're cooperating. They don't agree with each other.
No, they're all shaking their heads on that one. No, don't take our biases. It's like, no, don't take that.
Big pardon?
They're all shaking their heads, like, no. It's like, they're all holding something like a baby. It's like it's their own thing.
Are you getting
everyone,
this?
They're pointing like we've all got our own babies to rock.
Right, but they work together.
Yeah, they're agreeing on that.
And so, do they historically, built up through all their lives, have a baby they've grown and it's precious and they will stick to that, but they're trying to understand the other baby threads? The other people who had the other lives? Mac.
Yeah.
But they say we're all, you see, how do they recognize individual perception and yet deal with the unity that everybody is? How do you reconcile that?
Gosh, Mac is just like, he's looking but his eyes are going all cross-eyed.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
So they have the problem that we have.
Yes.
Okay, next question.
If we need to use different senses, and it's hard to see, and it's hard to hear, and it's hard to say,
right,
then something that's more immediate and connected to memory and understanding, like what's a good way for us to pick our third nostrils? Is smell useful?
Yeah, like
how do we pick our third nostril so it's all nice and clean and we can just smell what's right in front of our faces?
Linus just pointed out that they want us to use our senses, but the senses don't communicate through. Therefore, he's saying we must have a third nostril. How can we use a third nostril and pick it without getting dirty?
Oh, not without getting dirty. How do we clean it out?
How do we clean out our third nostril?
Imagination.
They all put their fingers in their ear, go through the ear.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Go for the ear.
Go through the ear.
Go through the ear, which was...
Their fingers in their ears and like through their heads and picking their inner nostril like that.
That's synesthesia. Go for the third nostril through the other sense. Synesthesia?
Yes.
You got that? That's going to come up in capital letters on the later quotes. Synesthesia. The sin of the 19th century. So, I'm quoting McLuhan. So we... a critic, a poet, a Canadian poet, it might have been A.J. Pratt, said that in describing McLuhan in the 60s, he said McLuhan put a telescope to his ear and said, what a lovely smell we have here. Now, we're mixing our senses, and also we have more, McLuhan said we had 14 senses. Do they agree with McLuhan?
They think there are more.
There are more. So we shouldn't be hypnotized by our 5 senses in our physical body.
No, definitely not.
Change your image of yourself.
They're kind of tools. They show me like spanners and hammers.
Right, so they're physics. They're showing us what we're made of. And we don't realize, and we're not using our senses. So medical schools are fascist because they show a limited body, right? Or anybody who shows anatomy. That's not us. So our media... extensions of the included in their definition of our expanded senses.
Yes, but they're distorted still.
They're still distorted. So we have senses that we're not using.
Yes, they agree with that. Yes.
Is talking to them through you activating some unconscious use of our senses? Of these other new senses? Are they trying to stimulate our other senses by doing this?
They're stimulating connections between things.
Connection?
Mental connections.
Is
They're
that...
showing me as in like part of the brain, the kind of physiology of it, as one point connecting to another point, so...
Do they show a skull in front of you?
Yeah. Literally, he kind of fits a little bit of his head and just, I can see this little...
Who opened his head?
Mac.
Mac opened his head. He's showing the connections in the skull.
Yeah.
And that has something to do with how we have to use more in our senses. So the senses are in our skull. These new senses.
Ask if it's connected to the...
Wiring.
What?
In the kind of the wiring of our brain.
The wiring?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do we massage them into action?
That's a big question, he said.
Well, he's telling us you got to drop all your assumptions of what you're made up of.
Yes.
Okay, we got that, guys. We're getting this from the McLuhan Festival. You are not what you think you are, not just in a simple way. You got a whole bunch of more antennas, and not just simple chakric bodies and all that occult knowledge. More than that?
Yeah, sweep all that aside, forget all that.
So would we not go to work tomorrow, stay home and see if these extra senses would feed us? What's the answer to that?
You got to find them first.
Go find them first.
Yeah.
Before you quit your job.
Yeah.
So do it on the weekend. Then if you find them, can you quit your job?
Well, he's looking at his watch.
He's looking at his watch. There's time running out to do this? No, that's paranoid, right?
Yeah, no, he doesn't mean in that way, isn't it? It's
What?
More, he doesn't mean in that way. It's maybe more like having the time to do it.
Make the time to do it.
Yeah.
Does doing yoga help? Do we need a new kind of yoga or whatever all these alternative methods of expanding our so-called sense lives, usually in relation to an image of death? I would assume they're telling us, forget about the death image. There's a lot more we can do right now rather than trying to transcend the physical. I'm beginning to feel we're on the edge of learning something. Anybody feel that? Look, geez, the chairs are on empty. Everybody went home.
Is there any else left?
Yeah, this
radio. This is live audience, by the way.
It's
not radio. It's live audience.
This is live audience, which means what to you?
That you've been totally involved in some other audience somewhere else, and you forgot where you were.
Oh, he's saying we need to involve the audience. Is that by asking, let them ask more questions, Wayne?
No, let's pay attention to where you are.
Well, I was really getting into this, you know.
You were over there.
Yeah. So
you weren't here.
Somebody back there. What? I like that guy. He's frustrated. What's your problem there? What did you say to your friend? He went, wow.
No, I wasn't frustrated. I was talking about, is this being web broadcast?
Is this being web broadcast?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is. People can hear this?
Yeah.
Can they see it? No, they can hear it. That's good enough. That's great. Does that mean anything to you, buddy?
No, I was just saying that this is basically an everyday experience, but put into focus.
He's saying this is an everyday experience put into focus. And what is that everyday experience?
This sort of like broken telephone loop cycle or something.
Broken, you mean this interdimensional thing has got a gap, which happens between people and between dimensions. So, did you get that glow? We've got a broken loop here. We're just showing that there's a broken loop between dimensions, just like humans have.
Okay.
Do they have an antidote to that, or they admit that's the case?
They're just showing me like two things they're trying to fit together, but it's like they're slippery and they keep sliding off each other. They can't quite stick together because it keeps sliding.
Right.
The gap happens because it slides.
Beg your pardon?
There is a gap because it won't stick together. It slides. The two parts slide.
Well, I'm getting the idea that they're in a dimension and we're in a dimension that might be better or more experienceable if we use the other senses than theirs.
Yes, definitely.
They're limited. Even though they're dead.
What do they know, man? Why are they so special?
No, they're implying they're not so special then.
Well, they're limited because of their sensory communication.
Right, they can't get into our sensory, that's the two things sliding.
They're not in that, so that's why.
There's two separate worlds here. What?
Do they have any questions they want to ask us?
Do you have any questions you want to ask? Do they have any questions they want to ask us?
Okay, just pointing to stomach. What have you been eating?
What have you been eating?
Yeah, you've been eating good things?
Been eating good things? What's good? They wouldn't know. They don't know anything about our dimension, maybe. Or
tortured birds.
Yeah, what's good?
Lately.
What have you? Do you want to give a sample of someone's been eating?
I just ate 4 muffins during this talk.
Someone just ate 4 muffins during this session.
Wow.
We're eating what the information matrix is feeding us.
Yeah, we're eating the information matrix in this situation.
Right? It's
Information
gruel.
matrix also feeds us organics.
So they knew these answers would come up. Was this a question with an effect in mind? They want us to realize what we are eating?
He's just smiling.
Are they trying to do skits and we're bombarding them too much?
Also, he wants to know about the festival. It's like, you having a good time?
You guys having a good time at the McLuhan Festival?
Yeah.
It's time for celebration.
Hey Bob, I am wondering where did AIDS come from?
Who's that?
Doc Pickles.
Okay, the question is, where did AIDS come from?
Okay. It's just showing me like a culture plate that you would grow something on.
From a laboratory?
Yeah.
And so it's made by scientists? Do they nod to that?
know, when you whistle, as you say, dun, 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 like...
He doesn't want to admit it?
Yeah.
It's controversial, but he's telling us it is a culture. Did it come from a green monkey virus?
Is there a number related to that? Numerology involved?
He's not answering that. Give me a pink monkey.
Big pardon?
Give me a pink monkey.
The pinks.
Okay, we know it came from the green monkey virus, and that's what they used to make the genetic engineering of it. Why are they saying pink, or are they not allowed to say it? We know that's the answer.
I don't think they, you know, some things I don't think they can interfere in. So they'll give you the answer, you know, it's like a coloured monkey. So
They're saying it's a monkey, but they're pretending to be wrong because they don't want to be accused of telling us. So it is a green monkey, but they pretend it's a different color. So okay,
Or maybe they're saying a pink monkey is a human.
Yeah.
Oh, pink. Is a pink monkey a human?
Flesh, you know?
What?
Something raw, pink flesh, something.
What about flesh?
Just like, what does pink represent? Why did you pick
Does pink represent humans? The pink monkey is human.
he's just whistling again. He's not giving any...
That means it's yes. That means yes.
HCE.
HCE. So yes, humans made it. It's a genetically engineered virus, and they're agreeing with that. That's what Dave found out.
Was it? All right, okay.
So Dave, are you satisfied with their answer? Do you think they're agreeing?
It wasn't my question, was done, but yeah.
They showed a little culture, right?
Yes.
Yep, that's that.
Why did they choose her to communicate to?
Why did they choose? Why did those three entities choose you, Glow, to do this?
Okay, what did you think, guys? Yeah, it just showed me like spanners and hammers, like, you know, a tool. I'm just a tool.
Well, were there other tools, or were you the only tool available?
I think they looked at several.
They looked at several.
Yeah.
Is it because you were interested in the Church of Subgenius before, and that would lead to me?
No, not really. You know, it's just kind of...
So you have
they had a job kind of, you know, they were looking for someone to do it. So they just went out and said, okay, it could be this person, or this person, and...
But there was a limited range of people, and they decided on you, and that was good enough.
You know, they seem happy.
What?
They seem happy.
Okay. You have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if Glow was maybe absorbed in her visual bias somehow, and if she was at all experimenting with maybe just interacting with them, maybe blindfolded or candlelight, or do they go outside with her?
Yes.
Can she kind of put a distance from herself? Do they
the
get
question
annoyed with her? Like, just how is her...
No, let's just hold that. The question is, do you have a visual bias, Glow, and could you access them differently? I know that you just recently learned how to do more of a deeper trance, and they're doing that because they do want you to pick up stuff by them speaking right inside you rather than seeing things, and then you would just write it out, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, she is trying to change. She feels limited. These visual skits are limited.
Yeah, and sometimes they get frustrated as well.
Do they ever yell at you? Yes, they have. I've heard it, seen it. They have gotten frustrated with you, right?
Yeah, at times. Yeah.
Matter of fact,
they are pretty patient, though. They are pretty patient.
But last year, Frank was so mad that you wouldn't talk to him because he was so aggressive at you.
Yeah, no, he was really rude to me. Yeah.
So you don't find this an interference in your life?
Not really. No. I think they're quite tactful when they kind of come and talk to me. I mean, when we first started doing this, it was very kind of like, you know, we'd stand and then we'd work and do it and then they'd go away, you know. But over time, I mean, it's been a couple of years now, so we've kind of developed more friendships with each other, and, you know, and when they do come in, I like to see them, like say hi and that.
And so they can come around more often?
Yeah, you know, if I have a problem, sometimes they'll come and just have a chat about it. Or same with them, if they have a problem, and sometimes they like to come talk to me about it.
They got a problem sometimes.
Yeah, so it kind of works, it's just like a friend works. You know, you build relationships with people. So.
You know, I know Glow early this year took some courses, went to a psychic course school, and she was in the crowd in the classroom, and the three guys came and were prancing up and down the aisle among all these psychic people. Yeah. And they all were looking at Glow and pissed off that they could see the three people, and they were saying, she brought them and they're distracting us. That happened. And the other psychics could see the three of them. Now, maybe Glow was making this up, but that you did report that, didn't you?
Yeah, Frank was being, you know, it's like, we were in church, you know, and then Frank kind of sliding down the aisle with his guitar, singing, you know, it was like, well, I was trying to hide kind of behind my hymn book, because I was embarrassed, you know, because I knew everyone else could see all these things, so I was thinking, oh God, no, please don't connect him to me, not with me, kind of thing.
And he was playing with the guitar.
Really, I suppose. But,
playing with the guitar.
Yeah.
The thing is that you don't make any money out of this. I'm the only one who engages this with you.
Pardon?
I'm the only one who engages you in this, whatever's happening to you, right?
Yeah, with those guys, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they work with other people, you know, they want to talk to other people, but...
Other ghosts?
No, just, you know, other people in the world. Sometimes they mainly go places and write things. But, you know, they do it all anonymously. They went, you know...
I'm not getting you. You're saying you talk to other people?
Yeah, in the world, sometimes on the internet, places, they'll take places, say, write this, write that there, make these things.
Oh, the three guys tell you?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so it's not just with me. Okay, good. But those people don't know that's being done.
No, they don't.
Right, okay.
Bob, we got some more questions.
Okay, question.
One of the staff here is looking for a career change, and he wanted to know how he could get a job like Glow's.
There's someone in the staff here looking for a career change and wants to know how to get a job like Glow's. No, I don't. No, you probably don't know, so they'll answer for you, right? Or do you want Glow to answer, Wayne? Okay, it can be you or them. How can they get a job? Well, it's not a job. It's a role. You didn't get anything out of this.
No, yeah.
It's a communication role.
Bob, I have a question for Mac.
Well, we don't want that one answered? Do we want that one answered?
Yes.
Yeah, so how can this person get a role like Glow?
Okay, I'll send that one, I think.
Beg pardon?
Do I send that one? I mean, I don't know, because I was born this way, so I don't know. Some people, you know, you can go and learn. There are other people that learn how to do it. You just have to find places and people that teach these kind of things, I guess.
And there are teachers. You went to this course yourself.
Yeah, I've met other people that could do it and they've helped me and, you know, expanded on what I already knew.
So you believe there are some people who are psychic and they can take good courses? Maybe Deb could tell us. She left, okay.
Bob, I have a question for Matt.
Okay.
What does Matt think about what we're doing at the McLuhan program now, and does he come and visit us?
Right. Question, what does Mac think of the program at the McLuhan, with the curriculum sort of thing?
No, what we're doing at
Okay, the actions at the McLuhan program in Culture and Technology at Wellesley and Queens Park Crescent, at that intersection, what does Mac think of what's going on there? And then the supplement.
Does he come and visit?
And does he come and visit?
That's a big yes.
Big yes. And what does he think of what they're doing?
Yeah, he thinks it's good, but he thinks that to be more physical, it's just, they're all kind of gesturing being physical with this, like, dancing.
Well, that's Wayne's point.
Yeah,
You develop our senses
more?
more?
Interactive, maybe? Yeah, okay, that's the point, yeah. Interactive, more physical, as in, not just in the mind.
The body.
I heard, you know, Mac is not doing McLuhan, but I heard that someone told me today that McLuhan's coach is still there, and there's a lot of couples that make love on it. Does he have any comment on that? Does Mac see that? It's McLuhan's old coach.
Amused. He seems amused.
Amused.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. There's someone over here.
What will our communication look like in the future?
Well, we said, would there be a new medium? Remember, and they did the lights? So this person is saying, what will our communication look like in the future? You mean as a technology or just, what will our communication, what will our interactions between people look like in the future? And I'll just supplement, were they referring to that when they showed the box with the lights when someone asked a new medium? Does that relate to her question about the appearance or characteristics of interpersonal communication?
Okay, yeah, it's showing me the segment in the circle. Yeah, that's a part of it. Also, gosh, that's a concept. Okay, it's just giving me a concept here of inside the inside.
That's what humans will be involved in?
Yeah, as in communication.
Inside the insides?
Is that the second inside with an S? Inside the insides or inside the inside, singular?
Singular.
Singular. Inside the inside.
The internal is tapping to his temple.
Well, that's where the other senses are then.
What about light?
Well, did you have more?
I just was wondering if there was more coming because it sounded like it was right what I was hoping.
Yeah, is there more he wants to say, they want to say on that question about the inside, the inside?
No, not yet, no. He's just getting, he's giving a little bit.
What about light and its wattage? What about light not just as one intensity, but that we all can have dimmer switches, hence pink to red, adding white, adding light. That's what's going on right now.
No, you didn't have a question there. Like you're just describing the lights and the dimmer.
Yeah, describing that.
How will we use it? How will we use our?
You can use one thing. Yeah, it's layers of an onion. Like if there's so many layers within one layer that we're already using, and we want more layers, we want more facets, but we can delve into one facet and dim it.
Why dim it?
But we could, when we need to, for protection, when it's just time to chill, when it's time to just hover.
You're describing what we do. Where's the question?
I'm talking about digestion time. There's eating, there's experiencing, and then there's digestion time. We often don't digest stuff until we're looking for the next feeding. And if we just install a dimmer switch inside ourselves.
Why would we do that?
Well, why is the dark negative?
Why isn't the dark negative?
Why is it?
Why is the dark negative?
It's just a fad. That's a fad. Yeah, it's a fad.
There's a question. Why is the dark negative?
The dark negative. Sorry, because I can hear any of that. So I didn't. Do you need me to know the full question, or should I just ask it?
Just ask him. Why is the dark negative?
Because it's divided.
Because it's divided.
Yeah.
Darkness is divided?
It's division.
It's division.
As light is divided.
The little lights, was he talking?
In the box?
The little lights in the box, is he talking about the quantum phase of electricity that we've been talking about?
The little lights in the box, is that the quantum phase of electricity that Mark and I were talking about?
That's definitely, there's connections there with it, yeah, definitely. It's quite exciting about that. Jump up there.
So we know a bit about that, Mark. That's what science is looking into now. So is there something science is missing as they develop that?
Okay.
Could they help inventors if they heard a tape of this?
They can't interfere. No, they can't,
Well, what are we talking to you guys for? What is the point of this?
Yes, I have a question.
What's going to happen when we no longer age?
Are they answering the question about what's the point of this? Well, they're not answering that. So someone
They're
said...
kind of looking at each other and in their arms yeah, what's the point of this?
They're looking at each other and they can't answer.
No.
The question was,
What's going to happen to humanity when we no longer age?
what's going to happen to humanity when we no longer age?
When we no longer die?
When we no longer age?
Yes.
Well, it's just, it's like he's growing bigger. His whole body is growing bigger. It's like he's expanding. It's going all, it's not solid, it's going all kind of watery.
Hear that? We're going watery, expanding. So that would be tapping into the other senses?
Maybe getting away from the physical body.
Yes.
And getting away from what we think is the physical body?
Yes.
How do we do this?
It's like we've got to use things in a different way, use things in another way.
Think in another way.
Yeah.
Has anybody teaching the other way of thinking that we should interrogate or follow?
They're starting to.
Who? Somebody is starting to think this way?
Mm-hmm.
Can you name the entity or organization? Or give us a clue where they are?
I don't think they're even aware of it.
They're not even aware of it?
No.
Well, so we don't find out who they are?
No.
No?
He's not giving anything away there. No, he's smiling. It's just like,
Okay,
Name some senses.
name some senses.
Question about the
You mean the newer ones?
I want to hear 14.
Are the alternate senses in some way connected to the inner ear or the
Pineal gland.
the pineal gland?
Okay, are the alternate senses connected to the inner ear or the pineal gland?
yes, definite connection.
Isn't that activating them? Isn't that already a form of knowledge we have?
Yes. But there's still more to it. It's only examples like why there's still more there.
So that's the Eastern or non-Western technologies. Would Western technologies and knowledge help us know more than what the yogis teach us?
Or even bigger, in bigger ways.
Is it because they'll give us technologies to do it?
Yes, partly.
And that's not cheating.
Part of it.
That's not cheating.
Name the 14.
If you had the answers, would you look at them? That's what you're saying.
That's another question. Do we want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, name the 14 senses.
You want me to do that?
No, not you, them.
Them? Okay. Just pointing to different areas on their body.
Different parts of our body, not just the eye, ear, nose, and...
No.
Ah, so they're in other areas of our body. It's where the senses are.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Mitch?
Too vague.
Too vague. You want names or exact positions?
On concepts that I can relate to through my senses.
He wants concepts that he can relate to through his senses. He's not satisfied with the answer.
Okay. It's there. Okay. It's something like he's got something big in his hands and he's trying to shove it up his nose. It's like it's too big to go through the other senses. It can't be just,
So in its inner skin or in the other parts of the body is a sense that the other senses are too small in relation to.
Yeah, it's like you couldn't translate it through. I mean, he's using the ultimate sense of smell here, but it's too big to go through that sense. It won't fit through it. It's too big to translate through that aspect. Maybe it's
the other senses are too big to translate through the other known 5 senses.
Yes.
Okay.
Through vibration then? Through vibration?
Is it through vibration? Like we use technology to stimulate the surface of our body?
Partly, but it's more than that.
More than that.
Organic vibration.
Is it organic vibration?
No.
Okay.
No?
No.
Yeah, it is technological vibration.
Yeah.
So does that go back to the CN Tower and the sponge wiping people? Remember the cleaning? I'm just thinking of that image, the sponge wiping us at the beginning. That was kind of a dumbing down, though. Uh-oh. Glow's daughter has shown up. Is the daughter just being disturbed?
Yeah, she's got up bed. I'm going to still put it back to bed. Can you smell it?
Okay, listen, while, I don't know how many here, do people want to go on? Are they involved or falling asleep? Keep going?
If she can.
While she goes,
Hey, Bob, is it, we have to ask them questions, or can we just sit and ask if they'd like to talk to us for a while?
okay.
Because I
We have
got a
questions
sense,
for us.
she's asking, she's saying, I can't hear what you're saying, I can't hear what they're saying, she can't.
No, she can hear.
Well, why?
That was just that one time. No, she hears.
Does Chloe's daughter see the ghosts?
Hey, listen, Barnaby, could you put up those quotes? Continue them while she puts away. I just wanted to bring in what McLuhan said after doing some of this. See what his quotes mean. See if they fit. Is Barnaby or whatever? We'll begin with quote number 20. Can you guys handle this? Can you read it? Just a minute. Go. You carry on. Go. We're just going to fill in something here.
Okay, cool.
Please clean filter.
McLuhan said that was my question. You got to clean the filter.
In light of them trying to communicate, does this mean an instant awareness of all the varieties of human expression constitutes a sort of mythic type of consciousness of once upon a timeness, which means all time out of time? It is possible that our new technologies can bypass verbalizing. Next. Or do you want to reread that? Instant awareness of all the varieties of human expression constitutes a sort of mythic type of consciousness of once upon a timeness, which means all time out of time. It is possible that our new technologies can bypass verbalizing. Okay, next. There is nothing inherently impossible in the computer or that type of technology extending consciousness itself as a universal environment. So he's talking about extending consciousness. There is a sense in which the surround of information that we now experience electrically is an extension of consciousness itself. There is a sense that what's around us is an extension of consciousness itself. Next one. What effect this might have on the individual and society is very speculative, but it has happened. It isn't something that's going to happen. Many people simply resort instantly to the occult, to ESP, and every form of hidden awareness in answer to this new surround of electric consciousness. You got that?
Didn't this electric consciousness always exist?
No, it was never externalized in known history, like television and everything and radio. Next. And so we are, in the vulgar sense, in an extremely religious age. Interesting, McLuhan says it's a vulgar sense we're in an extremely religious age. And I think we're moving into an age which, in popular notion at least, is probably the most religious that has ever existed. We are already there. Okay?
Can you ask them to make a distinction between religious and spiritual?
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, next. Synesthesia, which came up, remember? We have to look at...
Picking your nose through your ear.
The third nostril. Synesthesia, the new sin of the 19th century, roused as much misunderstanding as ESP today. Extrasensory perception is normal perception. Today electronics are extrasensory. Now remember, those guys are saying that these new technologies will help us develop our extra senses, right? Today electronics are extrasensory. Gallup polls and motivation research are also. Therefore, people get all steamed up about ESP as something for the future. It is already past and present. Next. Now Philip Marchand, who wrote the first biography of McLuhan, said this. I saw Phil today and I told him I was going to use this. It's useful. McLuhan appears to have regarded ESP not as some mystical phenomenon, but as a state of total perception in which all the senses were working harmoniously and at full strength. All 14 senses. Philip Marchand. Let's just, since that's the last McLuhan, just go back to 24 if you can. That's the last McLuhan. Synesthesia, the new sin of the 19th century, roused as much misunderstanding as ESP today. Extrasensory perception is normal perception. Today electronics are extrasensory. Gallup polls and motivation research are also. Therefore, people get all steamed up about ESP as something for the future. It is already past and present. That means the technologies here to enhance our sensory perception are already happening. That kind of, to me, resonates a bit of what they're trying to say here. But we're not using them. Next, or we are using them, but there's more to use with new communication devices. Then McLuhan appears to have regarded ESP not as some mystical phenomenon, but as a state of total perception which all senses were working harmoniously in full strength. Doesn't it kind of resonate with what we heard?
Yeah.
Okay, next. As Eric McLuhan said in a book he did in '99, this is the effects preceding the causes theme. The ground of effects always paves the way for the causes to arrive. With elevators, airplanes, helicopters, space shuttles, satellites, we have all the effects. Anti-gravity will not be long in coming, because we already experienced it through those earlier technologies. Radio, telephone, TV, and the rest mean that ESP technology will soon arrive.
Yeah, but it's here already. I got one in my pocket. I speak into my hand, and people at a distance here
Right.
do stuff.
That's what he means. Radio, telephone that's just a finer, better telephone. Wider, more ESP. But he's saying in the 60s, okay, it will mean that ESP... Okay, so Eric's making a difference, an extension, a difference from that as ESP, right? That's ESP.
That's ESP.
Hey, do you think having that kind of ESP deadens your actual organic, physical ESP? You become so reliant on a cell phone that you actually...
That's a good question, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's two good questions. Remember them. The next thing... Now this is a quote. I'm ending with this quote. It was Mallarmé, said McLuhan, the symbolist, who proclaimed that all the world exists to end in a book. Next question. Next statement. Thus the future of the book is nothing less than to be the means of surpassing nature itself. The material world is to be etherealized and encapsulated in a book whose characters will possess all the formulas for the knowledge and recreation of being. The material world is to be etherealized in this book and encapsulated in a book whose characters will possess all the formulas for the knowledge and recreation of being. The next image will be a picture of that book. Let's see it. There's the book. Now we move beyond it. It says Xenocrates Dobbs tiny note, and this is a formulaic presentation of that book. Now we go next. Electronics as ESP is a title of the first time I ever see him talk about ESP. In 1957 he did Explorations Journal number 8, and he had a section called Electronics as ESP. So that gives you a clue that he tuned into technological as ESP. Most occultists probably don't see that. Which goes back to your question, using technologies numbing our ESP or not, right?
Yeah. No, it's exactly the opposite.
McLuhan thinks it's exactly the opposite. Yeah. Let's find out if he's right from these guys. Next, so my chart deals with cloning. I consider electric analog technologies evoke phatic communion, which is nodding and winking and no verbalizing or no meaningful verbalizing. It's a form of massaging each other. Then we went into next one, voluntary ESP. The digital environments allowed us to disconnect from watching Ed Sullivan constantly at the same time, which was cloning mass ESP. Digital makes us voluntary ESP. We can drop in and drop out. Jump into the jello, that wall of jello, or not, depending. You have the option to not watch what everybody else is watching. That seems to be what the digital environments create. Now we're going a bit into my stuff. So digital environments evoke Menippean phatic communion. McLuhan was a Menippean satirist. So the phatic communion you get on chat lines and websites, generally subsumed into the rubric, we have all this amazing technology and everybody ends up insulting each other. That's being ironic and using the digital detached environment from the cloned SP to probe at each other and jump into the jello and jump back. That's my own thing. Then the next point, the next chart, there's where there's more in the Bedecker section. And now we can go to glow. I just wanted to finish that. If anybody wants to ask anything, see any more about that, go back. Anybody want to say any more about that? Should we go back to glow?
I want to add one.
Hey, Bob, you there, Bob?
Yeah, we're going to. Are you ready?
Bob, I'm going to have to go, I'm afraid.
Okay, listen, Glow, we have two questions. I mean, we can go in a couple minutes. I know we got to go, but what's your question, Duncan?
Relying on a cell phone sort of deaden our own...
Okay. McLuhan says electronic gadgets enhance our extrasensory perception. The three entities there said that. The question Duncan has, is it really true that the cell phone and extra technologies are expanding our senses, or are they really dumbing us? What do the three people say to that? Three entities say to that?
Max says expansion.
He says expansion.
Yeah, Frank doesn't agree though.
Oh, okay. And Joyce, James.
It's undecided.
That's the one.
Undecided. So we got three different views, as we established earlier. One was the popping balloons, one was the gun, and one was the piece. Those three views, we have not a unified band here. Those three guys have different approaches toward interpretations of what we're doing to ourselves. They're raising three aspects, three questions about what we're doing. Mac thinks we're doing okay. Frank doesn't, and Jim doesn't know. That's why he couldn't finish his book. Oh, sorry. Can't go there. You know what I mean. So that's the answer, right, Glo?
Yes.
They're undecided, just like we're undecided. Do they think that we have to communicate more with them, like other people use mediums? Is that a viable way of answering this dilemma?
The real answer is going to come through. You show me like a singularity, a convergence. Perhaps more when we're agreeing more on what we think.
We will.
They don't agree or whatever, but maybe that's the problem. Or, that's a big part of the problem is that none of us are agreeing on anything.
On that side or this side?
Both, she says.
Will that woman who asked the question about improving new communication, going inside the inside, which is kind of like ESP, that will help us converge?
Definitely. It's like hammer on the nail on the head.
I hammered the nail on the head?
Yeah.
Well, okay, we're ending. I just want to say, I think there was something. What was it? What was that spiritual thing? What's the difference between religion and spirituality?
One way the blind. He's saying one is from the heart and one is from the mind. He's pointing to his heart and then to his mind.
Is he saying which one's which? Is spirituality mind or heart?
No, he's not going to answer that.
Not going to answer. No. And when McLuhan put on a blindfold, which one put on the blindfold? Religion or spirituality?
He's just smiling. He's not going to answer that either.
There we are, back at the beginning with nothing. So, is that it? Can we end? Any fun?
Thanks, Glo!
What'd you say, Jude? Yay, Glo. Okay, Glo. Actually, a few people here like you.
Yeah. We all love her. Much love, Glo.
Oh, I forgot to ask. What about Louise Hay? What was the question?
Oh,
Louise Hay.
Forget it now.
It's an addendum. Quick.
No. Is Louise Hay right?
Is Louise Hay correct?
He's not sure. I'm asking the guys here. They're not sure. I don't think they're sure who she is.
Okay, we'll leave that.
That's all right.